protect people from wire fraud. It calls for banks and wire services to warn customers before transferring money.
You authorized the wire transfer. Your bank processed it. The money left your account, so why can't they bring it back? Wire transfer scams cost Americans over $2.9 billion in 2023, according to the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, with individual losses averaging $127,000 per victim. Unlike credit card fraud or unauthorized debit charges, wire transfers are nearly impossible to reverse once completed. Today, I'm exposing how wire transfer scams work, why banks refuse to help victims, and what you need to know right now to protect yourself before you lose everything. Let's get into it. The transfer you can't take back. Lisa Patterson received an email from her boss at 4:30 on a Friday afternoon. The subject line read, "Urgent, wire transfer needed before close of business." Lisa, I'm in meetings with the acquisition team and can't access my banking right now. We need to send a wire transfer of $47,000 to our vendor to secure the materials for the Houston project. I'll forward you the account details. Please process this before 5 p.m. or we'll lose the shipment. Thanks. Everything seemed legitimate. The email came from her boss's email address. The signature matched his usual format. The urgency was typical for end-of-week vendor payments. Lisa was the office manager and had authorization to process wire transfers for company expenses. She received the follow-up email with wire transfer instructions, account number, routing number, bank name, beneficiary details. She processed the transfer at 4:50 p.m. through the company's online banking portal. Confirmation received. Transfer sent. She emailed her boss to confirm completion. Monday morning, her boss walked into the office asking why a vendor was calling about an overdue payment for the Houston project. Lisa showed him the wire transfer confirmation. Her boss went pale. He'd never sent those emails. His email account had been compromised. The wire transfer instructions were fraudulent. The $47,000 was gone, sent to an account at a bank in New York, then immediately transferred to accounts in 3 different countries within hours. By the time Lisa's company contacted their bank Monday morning, the money had been laundered through multiple accounts across international borders. Their bank's response: wire transfers are immediate and irreversible. Once the funds left your account, we have no authority to retrieve them. You authorized the transfer using your legitimate credentials. We cannot be held responsible for fraud resulting from compromised email accounts. Lisa's company never recovered the money. The FBI investigation traced the funds through 5 countries before the trail went cold. The criminals were never identified. And Lisa lost her job 3 months later when the company downsized due to financial losses. But here's what makes wire transfer scams uniquely devastating. The money doesn't just disappear. It's actively being moved and laundered while you're still trying to understand what happened. And the system designed to move money instantly has zero ability to bring it back. Let me show you why. Why wire transfers are irreversible. According to the Federal Reserve, wire transfers moved over $890 trillion in 2023 through the Fedwire system alone. The entire financial system is built on the principle that wire transfers are final, immediate, and irreversible. When you initiate a wire transfer, the money moves through the automated clearinghouse or the Fedwire Funds Service. These systems are designed for speed and finality. Unlike credit card payments or ACH debits that have built-in reversal mechanisms, wire transfers are completed in real time and considered settled immediately. The receiving bank has no obligation to verify the legitimacy of incoming wire transfers. They simply credit the beneficiary account and release the funds. Once the money arrives, it legally belongs to the account holder. Your bank cannot reach into another bank's customer account and retrieve funds, even if those funds were obtained through fraud. International wire transfers add another layer of complexity. The money moves through correspondent banking networks, crossing jurisdictions with different laws, regulations, and cooperation agreements. Swift transfers can touch multiple banks across multiple countries in hours. Each jurisdiction has its own legal framework for fund recovery, most of which heavily favor finality of transfers. The Federal Trade Commission explicitly warns consumers that wire transfers are like sending cash. Once it's gone, it's gone. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau categorizes wire transfers differently from other electronic payments, specifically because they lack the consumer protections that apply to credit cards, debit cards, and ACH payments. Marcus, a compliance attorney specializing in banking law, explains, wire transfer systems were designed for business-to-business transactions where both parties have established relationships and verified identities. The assumption was that wires would only be used for legitimate purposes between known entities. Fraud was considered rare. The entire system is built on trust and finality, not on consumer protection or fraud recovery. And here's the nightmare. Even when law enforcement identifies where the money went and which accounts received it, getting it back requires international legal cooperation that takes months or years if it succeeds at all. By then, the funds have been withdrawn, converted to cryptocurrency, or moved to jurisdictions with zero cooperation agreements. Your bank knows this. They know that once you authorize a wire transfer, recovery is nearly impossible. But they process these transfers anyway because they're not liable for your decision to send money to criminals. And the three types of wire transfer scams hitting people right now, each one exploits a different human vulnerability, and one of them is probably targeting someone you know right this second. The romance scam wire transfer. According to the FBI's IC3 report, romance scams resulted in losses exceeding $736 million in 2023, with wire transfers being the primary payment method. The average individual loss was $19,000, with many victims losing six figures. The pattern is consistent. Criminals create fake profiles on dating sites or social media, initiate romantic relationships with victims over weeks or months, build deep emotional connections through constant communication, then create financial emergencies requiring immediate wire transfers. The emergencies vary, but follow predictable patterns. Medical crisis for themselves or a family member requiring expensive treatment. Business opportunity that needs immediate funding to succeed. Legal trouble requiring money for lawyers or bail. Travel emergency where they're stranded and need funds to return home. Investment opportunity that will benefit both of you financially. The wire transfer request always comes with urgency. The opportunity will be lost. The medical treatment cannot wait. The legal consequences are immediate. Time pressure prevents victims from thinking carefully or consulting with others. Jennifer Martinez, a 54-year-old widow, developed what she believed was a genuine romantic relationship with someone she met on a dating site. Over 7 months, they communicated daily through messages, emails, and phone calls. He claimed to be a construction contractor working overseas on a major project. When his supposed project encountered financial difficulties, he asked Jennifer for a short-term loan of $15,000 to cover equipment costs until his payment came through. He provided wire transfer instructions to his business account. Jennifer sent the money. 2 weeks later, another emergency. Customs fees for equipment shipment, $8,500 needed immediately. She sent that too. Over 5 months, Jennifer wired $67,000 in multiple transfers. Each time, there was a crisis only she could solve. Each time, he promised repayment. Each time, another emergency arose before repayment could happen.
He didn't ask me for money on the third date. He'd asked me for money after he'd reeled me in, we're in a relationship, I'm in love, and kind of really deep into it.
It became obvious quite quickly that Aaron was a serial fraudster.
When Jennifer finally demanded a video call after 8 months of communicating, he disappeared. No messages, no calls. The phone number disconnected. The dating profile deleted. Jennifer contacted her bank to report fraud and request the wire transfers be reversed. Bank response: you authorized these transfers yourself using your online banking credentials. The wire transfers were sent to accounts you specified. We cannot reverse completed wire transfers, and we are not liable for losses resulting from your decision to send money to third parties. Jennifer filed a police report. The FBI traced the wire transfers to accounts in Malaysia, Nigeria, and Dubai. The investigation is ongoing 3 years later. Jennifer has recovered $0. She lost her retirement savings and had to return to work at age 57 to survive financially. And here's the cruelest part. Romance scam victims often face additional trauma from skepticism and blame. Family members question how they could be so foolish. Law enforcement asks why they sent money to someone they'd never met. Banks imply they should have known better. The emotional abuse compounds the financial devastation. If you're realizing how easy it would be to fall for this, how lonely people seeking connection become perfect victims, hit that like button and subscribe right now. Wire transfer scams are spreading globally, and understanding how they work might save you or someone you love from financial ruin. Drop a comment. Have you or someone you know been targeted by romance scams? Sharing your experience could help others recognize the warning signs. Business email, compromise, the corporate killer. The FBI's IC3 data shows business email compromise scams resulted in losses exceeding $2.9 billion in 2023, making it the costliest cybercrime category. Average losses per incident were $127,000, with some companies losing millions in single attacks. BEC scams target businesses of all sizes through compromised email accounts, spoofed email addresses, and social engineering. The pattern typically involves criminals impersonating executives, vendors, or business partners to trick employees into authorizing wire transfers. The email compromise happens through phishing attacks, malware, password reuse from data breaches, or social engineering. Once criminals access an executive's email, they study communication patterns, ongoing projects, vendor relationships, and payment procedures. They learn the company's language, identify who has wire transfer authority, and wait for the perfect opportunity. The attack execution is carefully timed. End of day on Friday when verification is difficult, during travel when executives are unavailable, during busy periods when employees are rushed, or immediately before holidays when urgency feels legitimate. Robert Chen's manufacturing company lost $340,000 to a BEC attack. His CFO's email account was compromised through a phishing attack. Criminals monitored emails for 3 weeks, learning about vendor payments and wire transfer procedures. On a Friday afternoon, the accounting department received an email appearing to be from the CFO. We're acquiring new equipment for the expansion project. I need you to wire $340,000 to the supplier today to lock in pricing before the weekend. Account details attached. The accounting manager processed the wire transfer at 4:45 p.m. The email came from the CFO's legitimate address. The request aligned with known expansion plans. The urgency seemed reasonable for end-of-day business. Monday morning revealed the fraud. The CFO hadn't sent the email. The supplier account was fraudulent. The $340,000 was wired to an account in Hong Kong, then immediately dispersed to accounts in 7 countries. Robert's company contacted their bank requesting reversal. Bank response: the wire transfer was authorized by your employee using legitimate company credentials and proper authorization protocols. The transfer was completed according to your instruction. We cannot reverse completed wire transfers. The company filed claims with their bank, their insurance company, and law enforcement. The bank denied liability. Insurance denied the claim, stating the loss resulted from employee error not covered by their cyber policy. The FBI investigation is ongoing with zero recovery. Robert's company survived but laid off 15 employees and canceled the expansion project. The accounting manager who processed the transfer was fired despite following established procedures. The CFO resigned due to the breach occurring through his email account. And here's what companies don't want to admit: BEC attacks succeed because business processes prioritize speed over verification. Wire transfer procedures that require multiple approvals get bypassed for urgent situations. Email is trusted implicitly even though it's easily compromised, and employees are punished for following instructions from what appeared to be legitimate executive communications. Now, there's a third variation that's even more terrifying because it weaponizes the one thing Americans fear most: government authority. Let me show you what this is. The impersonation wire transfer attack. Government impersonation scams accounted for $1.1 billion in losses in 2023, according to FTC data. Criminals impersonate IRS agents, Social Security Administration officials, FBI agents, or other government authorities to create fear and urgency that results in wire transfers. The scam typically begins with a phone call from someone claiming to be a government official. They have your personal information: name, address, Social Security number, employment details. This information comes from data breaches but makes their identity seem legitimate. They create a crisis: outstanding tax debt with immediate legal consequences, Social Security number compromised and used in criminal activity, warrant for your arrest that can only be resolved through immediate payment, benefits suspended due to suspicious activity requiring verification payment. The payment demand always involves wire transfers, often to government holding accounts or secure verification accounts that are actually controlled by the criminals. They provide detailed wire transfer instructions and stay on the phone while you process the transfer to prevent you from consulting with others or thinking carefully. Sarah Martinez, a 71-year-old retiree, received a call from someone claiming to be an IRS agent. The caller had her Social Security number, her address, and details about her tax filings from previous years. He stated she owed $12,400 in back taxes from 2019 and faced immediate arrest if she didn't pay within 2 hours. Sarah was terrified. She'd always paid her taxes on time and couldn't understand how this debt existed. The caller explained there had been a filing error and the IRS had sent multiple notices that she supposedly ignored. Now it was in collections with criminal penalties. The caller instructed Sarah to wire $12,400 to an IRS holding account to avoid arrest. He provided wire transfer details and stayed on the phone while Sarah went to her bank. He told her not to discuss the situation with bank employees because they weren't authorized to handle IRS matters. Sarah wired the money at 11:30 a.m. The caller confirmed receipt and said she'd received documentation within 10 business days. 3 weeks later, when no documentation arrived, Sarah contacted the actual IRS. They had no record of her owing any back taxes. The call was a scam. The wire transfer went to a criminal account. Sarah's bank refused to reverse the transfer. You authorized this wire transfer yourself. We cannot be responsible for your decision to send money based on a phone call. Wire transfers are final. Sarah lost her entire savings. She now lives on Social Security alone, unable to afford many medications or activities she previously enjoyed. The criminals were never identified. The money was never recovered. And here's what government agencies keep trying to tell people, but the message doesn't penetrate. Real government agencies do not demand immediate payment via wire transfer. They do not threaten arrest over the phone. They do not ask you to wire money to holding accounts. But criminals know that fear of government authority overrides rational thinking, and they exploit that fear ruthlessly.
Your help to slam the scam on government imposters. An email, call, or text message could be a scam if it is unexpected, rushes or threatens you, pressures for personal or financial information, or tells you to pay now or else. Call FOUL.
So you've been scammed. You realize what happened. You call your bank immediately, begging them to stop the transfer, to bring your money back. And what they tell you next, the legal reasons they give for why they won't help you, will make you realize the entire financial system was designed to protect banks, not you. Why banks won't help you. The legal framework around wire transfers heavily favors banks and places almost all liability on customers. Understanding why helps explain the uphill battle victims face when seeking recovery. The Uniform Commercial Code Article 4A governs wire transfers in the United States. It establishes that wire transfers are final when the receiving bank accepts the payment. Once acceptance occurs, the transfer cannot be reversed without the beneficiary's consent. Banks are not required to verify the legitimacy of wire transfer requests beyond confirming the customer's identity and ensuring proper authorization was used. If you logged into your account with your credentials and authorized the transfer, the bank has fulfilled its obligations. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau's regulations provide extensive protections for credit cards, debit cards, and ACH transactions. Wire transfers are specifically excluded from most of these protections. The Electronic Fund Transfer Act, which protects consumers from unauthorized electronic transfers, does not apply to wire transfers in most circumstances. When you report a fraudulent wire transfer, banks typically respond that the transfer was authorized by you using legitimate credentials. The receiving account information was provided by you, the bank followed your instructions correctly, and recovery of funds is your responsibility, not theirs. Some banks make efforts to contact receiving banks and request return of funds. Success rates are extremely low. Receiving banks have no legal obligation to cooperate, and by the time the fraud is reported, the funds have usually been withdrawn or transferred elsewhere. David Thompson lost $89,000 to a BEC scam.
NBC5 responds in a case they've been following very closely now. It's been almost 3 years since a Skokie man had his Citibank account emptied by scammers.
He says Citibank told him there was nothing they could do.
His small business authorized a wire transfer for what they believed was a vendor payment. When they discovered the fraud 30 minutes after the transfer, they immediately contacted their bank requesting emergency reversal. Bank response: "We can attempt to contact the receiving bank and request voluntary return of the funds, but we cannot guarantee any outcome. The wire transfer was properly authorized and executed according to your instruction." The receiving bank, a major institution in California, was contacted within 1 hour of the transfer. They confirmed the funds had arrived but stated they could not freeze or return them without a court order because the account holder had not consented to return. By the time David's attorney obtained a court order 3 days later, the receiving account had been emptied and closed. The funds were traced to accounts in 6 countries before the trail disappeared entirely. David sued his bank for processing a fraudulent wire transfer. The lawsuit was dismissed. The court ruled the bank had no duty to verify the legitimacy of wire transfer requests beyond confirming proper authorization, which they had done. And here's the reality that banks won't advertise. They profit from wire transfers through fees while bearing zero liability for fraud. There is no financial incentive for banks to invest in better fraud prevention or victim recovery services. The current system works perfectly for banks, disastrously for victims. But surely there's some way to get the money back, right? Law enforcement, international cooperation, legal action, something must work. Let me show you the brutal statistics on wire transfer recovery that banks pray you never see. The recovery reality. According to FBI statistics, less than 10% of wire transfer fraud victims recover any portion of their losses. Of those who do recover funds, the average recovery is only 37% of the stolen amount. Recovery attempts typically follow several paths. all with low success rates. First is contacting the receiving bank directly and requesting voluntary return of funds. Success rate, less than 5%. Most receiving banks refuse without court orders. Second is filing FBI complaints through ic3.gov and requesting federal investigation. Success rate, less than 3% result in fund recovery. Investigations can take years and often close without resolution. Third is hiring attorneys to pursue civil litigation against receiving banks or account holders. Success rate, less than 15%, and legal costs often exceed recovered amounts. Fourth is attempting recalls through SWIFT for international transfers. Success rate, less than 2%. Recalls require cooperation from all intermediary banks and the receiving institution. Fifth is working with international law enforcement through FBI legal attaché offices. Success rate, less than 1%. International legal cooperation is slow, limited, and often impossible in non-treaty countries. Jennifer Park lost $156,000 to a romance scam involving multiple wire transfers over 8 months. She filed FBI complaints, hired an attorney, contacted receiving banks in 3 countries, and worked with international law enforcement for 2 years. Total recovered $0. The investigation identified some accounts that received the funds but found they'd been emptied within hours of receiving each transfer. The account holders claimed they were money mules who didn't know the transfers were fraudulent. No criminal charges were filed due to insufficient evidence of intent. Jennifer's legal fees totaled $18,000. She never recovered a single dollar of the stolen funds. She declared bankruptcy and lost her home. The statistics are brutal. If you fall victim to a wire transfer scam, you will almost certainly lose your money permanently. Planning your life around the assumption you'll recover stolen funds is financially catastrophic. So how do you defend yourself when the financial system offers zero protection and banks refuse to help? The answer isn't complicated, but it requires something most people struggle with: how to actually protect yourself. Protection from wire transfer scams requires strict protocols and absolute refusal to deviate from them regardless of urgency or authority.
It's National Consumer Protection Week, so all week long we will provide useful information to keep you from becoming a victim. Fraud costs Americans $12.5 billion every year, and the number of scams just keeps growing. 7 on your side, Zena Pineda is here with a warning about one of the most common types of deception.
First, never send wire transfers based on email instructions alone. Always verify requests through independent communication channels. Call the person using a phone number you have saved, not one provided in the email. Verify in person if possible. Use video calls to confirm identity. Second, implement multi-person verification for all wire transfers over a specific threshold. Require 2 people to independently verify the legitimacy of wire transfer requests before authorization. This prevents single point of failure social engineering. Third, establish waiting periods for new wire transfer recipients. Any wire transfer to a new account should have a mandatory 24 to 48 hour waiting period. This allows time for verification and prevents urgent scam scenarios. Fourth, never wire money to someone you haven't met in person, regardless of the relationship. Romance scam victims all believe their situation is different. It isn't. If you haven't met someone face to face, do not wire them money, ever. Fifth, treat all wire transfer requests with extreme skepticism. Even if the request comes from your boss, your vendor, or your family member, independently verify through separate communication before processing. Sixth, ignore urgency. Wire transfer scams always involve time pressure. Legitimate wire transfers can wait for proper verification. Anyone pressuring you to wire money immediately is either a scammer or using poor business practices. Seventh, use alternative payment methods whenever possible. ACH transfers, checks, and credit cards all have better fraud protections than wire transfers. Reserve wire transfers for situations where no alternative exists. Eighth, document everything. Save all communications requesting wire transfers. Take screenshots. Keep detailed records. If fraud occurs, documentation is essential for any recovery attempt. Lisa Thompson's company implemented strict wire transfer protocols after learning about BEC scams. When their CFO's email was compromised and a fraudulent wire transfer request was sent, the accounting department followed protocol. Attempted to verify via phone call, couldn't reach the CFO, waited 24 hours per policy. The next day, the real CFO confirmed he'd never sent the request. The protocol prevented a $200,000 loss. These protections feel bureaucratic and slow business operations, but the alternative is losing everything with zero recourse. transfers. Choose slight inconvenience over permanent financial devastation. If this video showed you how vulnerable you are to wire transfer scams, share it immediately with everyone who handles money. Share it with your parents who might fall for government impersonation. Share it with business owners who could lose everything to BEC attacks. Share it with friends using dating sites who might encounter romance scammers. Subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss critical fraud alerts. These scams evolve constantly, and staying informed is your only defense. Drop a comment. Have you been targeted by wire transfer scams? Your story could save someone else from financial ruin. Stay vigilant out there. I'll see you in the next one.